about houses, new and old. When thinking about purchasing a house or property, there are many factors to be considered, and sometimes one can be trapped or fooled by something that may seem insignificant or not appear to be an issue until after the deal is done, and often the overlooked insignificant can be a real major headache and unnecessary expense. Be very careful in deciding this is the house or property for you, as dreams can very quickly turn into nightmares if the wrong choice has been made. Some issues to consider that might not appear in a district council LIM report. Firstly, be aware that a real estate agent acts primarily for the seller of a property, and that often they will downplay the significance of any given issue when questioned by a potential buyer. For example, if you clearly slight termite or woodworm damage, they might respond by saying the floors have been sanded and polished, and as you can see by the groove lines, it appears the termites have left. However, my client accepts there has or might be an issue here, which is why the property is so priced. Why do they say such things? When on further casual inspection by you as a buyer, the whole house appears riddled with termite or woodworm damage, because in New Zealand they are loosely bound by a code to give a fair representation of the property when queried about issues. In saying this, it does not mean they are going to be 100% forthcoming with the true state of the property. They are there to sell the property, not inspect it. Feel free to ask questions, but keep in mind the answers you get may be watered down, trivialized truths that are revealing yet designed to not fool you, but show the property as glowing rather than something that should or could fit the condemned property category. Real estate agents are not your friend if you are looking at buying. They work for the seller. They have an obligation to treat you fairly as a buyer, but at the end of the day, they are there to make a sale. Some factors to be considered and not taken lightly when looking at purchasing a house or property. Obvious factors to look at before engaging a property inspection firm or building engineer. Land site. Is it flat, sloping, high or low, and does it look like it is well drained and well above any natural water table? Does it look like stable dirt, or is it mushy underfoot or built on a sand dune, etc.? With new subdivisions, be aware that some of these are in fact infilled paddocks and may have very poor drainage. Another issue to consider is what was the land previously used for, because if it was an orchard or farm, chemicals may have been used, and you would need to be satisfied the land has been decontaminated, or if there was mining activity, is the ground stable? The local council may have a file on this issue, or you may have to study a little local area history. Also, keep an eye out for any criminal activity having occurred on the property, such as meth production. You might like to consider having it tested, which is not expensive, as it might save you suffering major health issues or an expensive decontamination bill. Be aware that Earth moves in nature, albeit not significantly noticeable to the average person. Nonetheless, everything minutely over time or according to seasonal condition moves. That is, it expands and contracts with temperature rise and decline. Also, is the area more prone to movement, i.e., has it historically been subject to minor or major earth tremors? A quick look at GeoNet can reveal much about how many insignificant to major earthquake New Zealand suffers daily and their location. Be as thorough as you can in finding out all you can about your prospective purchase. The goal here is to lessen and or eliminate any issues that might cause unnecessary financial hardship later throughout the term you choose to inhabit or rent the property. The improvements, i.e. house, shed, pool, fences, etc. What are the house foundations like? Has it got a concrete floor? Does it have concrete or wooden house piles if it is raised above ground level, and are they sound and free of termite, borer, woodworm or weather damage? Does the house sit level? Are there any signs of water damage due to defective cladding? This can be not so easy to detect if it's affecting framing inside a wall or up in the roof cavity. Sneaky tip: houses built during the 1990s to 2004 in New Zealand may be more prone to weather tightness issues, and also may have been constructed using untreated dried timber, thus may be more vulnerable to termite, woodworm, borer or rot attack. Check these very thoroughly, especially if they have plastered finishes on exterior walls or walls that look like large solid concrete slabs but are actually hollow. Look for cracking along the wall or buckling or any sign of recent repair, including a fresh coat of paint. Bump the wall. Does it feel solid like brick, or does it sound sort of hollow? Put your hand on it on a dry day. Does it feel cold? If your suspicions are aroused, realize the only way of determining whether it is hiding something is by having it probed with a moisture meter or other electronic equipment, unless of course you remove the cladding to inspect the framing, something the seller probably won't allow. Watch out also for complicated or flat looking roof designs that may or may not have internal type gutters, as these can be prone to leakage also. In general, if a house smells musty or feels damp and you see any sort of bubbling on internal walls, ceilings, etc., be careful, and if in doubt at all, either don't go there or get an expert to check it for weather tightness issues. Be aware that some houses, units or apartments have required hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in repairs to redesign and rectify faults to code standards. Be aware that the building code does not allow an unlicensed builder to repair failed cladding. So don't go thinking I will just reclad that, especially if the cladding has failed time-wise under what the manufacturer specified it would meet. Don't get burned buying a suspect design or by faulty materials or poorly applied materials. No matter how aesthetically pleasing the house may seem, it could be a nightmare in disguise. Get a professional to check it thoroughly or walk away. Be wary of unusual or unproven designs. I have chatted with a few old-timer qualified builders, and a lot tell me that a lot of the designs that came out during the era in question were not practical and doomed to fail, mainly due to the fact that the internals were not able to breathe sufficiently, or the materials were either not applied correctly or coated correctly, or were just cheap and nasty. This, coupled with the use of flat to mildly sloping area surfaces where warpage or inadequate drainage could cause an external or internal surface water pool, made for a nice looking disaster waiting to happen. Unfortunately, a lot of folk got caught out, and in many ways new untested designs can be risky, although nowhere near as much today as they were then, as the building code is a lot more stringent. Nonetheless, it is not much different than buying a newly designed car with a breakthrough engine design. Only time will tell if it's a good one. Fortunately, expected minimal standards are now much higher, and of course technology has advanced. Older houses. Due to their age and design, most older houses don't lend to hiding much that well, and if they have been maintained or renovated correctly, they can be surprisingly solid, due in part to the heavier grade materials used in their construction and their simplistic design. Also, some might say or think that things were done a lot more proficiently in days gone by. Most old villas that appear to be run down will be run down, and renovating these is no walk in the park, and one should keep in mind that the building code only allows the home handyman type person to do limited amounts, as any structural upgrades will have to be compliant with today's standards. Nonetheless, if you can find a good one, you are over halfway there. Some things to look for, particularly with these buildings, are good foundations, a level floor throughout, maintained cladding, maintained roof in sound order, straight sound chimney, square door frames, no sign of woodworm, borer or termite damage, sound, firm flooring. Things to be aware of with villas. The wiring may need replacing, the hot water cylinder may be old and inefficient or near failure, the plumbing may need replacing, especially if it has older galvanized steel plumbing as opposed to copper pipes. The wallpaper may be glued to sackcloth-like materials. The internal walls may be a series of planks running along the framing as opposed to gibboard. If the floor is not level, it will be expensive to repile the house, and even then it may over time return to its current slope. Uneven flooring or borer-riddled structured timbers will be expensive to rectify and or replace, and there is a very high chance that if borer is in the floor, it is in the structural beams under the floor and possibly going up the walls. A lot of these older houses lack thermal insulation, so if it's a doer upper, it could be very expensive to renovate.